I never thought saving my boss from what looked like the worst date in history would change my entire life. There I was, Daniel Taylor, 28 years old, watching through the restaurant window as Julie Hughes sat across from some guy who was clearly more interested in his phone than her. She kept glancing toward the door with this look I had never seen before. Desperate. My successful, confident boss looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. The guy suddenly stood up, threw some cash on the table, and walked out. Just left her sitting there. I watched Julie put her head in her hands for a moment before straightening up, trying to compose herself. That was when I made a decision that would change everything. I walked into that restaurant, my heart pounding, and approached her table. Julie, she looked up at me with surprise and something that might have been embarrassment. I could see her trying to figure out what to say, how to explain why her employee just caught her on what was obviously a disaster of a date. Before we see how this ends, tell us where you are watching from and hype this video in the comments. You are going to want to hear how this story unfolds. But let me back up and tell you how I got to that moment, because the real story started 3 months earlier when I first walked into Hughes Marketing Solutions as their new graphic designer. I had been freelancing for 2 years after college, barely making ends meet in my tiny apartment when this opportunity came up. Julie Hughes had built her marketing company from nothing into one of the most respected firms in the city. I knew her reputation. Everyone did. She was smart, driven, and had this way of seeing potential in campaigns that others missed. What I was not prepared for was how she looked when I walked into that interview. Julie was 46 years old, though I did not know that at the time. She had this auburn hair that caught the light when she moved, and these green eyes that seemed to see right through you. But it was not just that she was beautiful. There was something about her presence, the way she carried herself, that made the whole room feel different. She interviewed me for an hour, asking about my work, my ideas, my goals. Not once did she make me feel like the inexperienced kid I thought I was. She listened to every answer like it mattered, like I mattered. When she offered me the wasp at the end of that meeting, I felt like I had won the lottery. Those first few weeks working for Julie were eye-opening. She was demanding but fair, pushing me to do better work than I thought I was capable of. She would stop by my desk with feedback that was always constructive, always delivered with this smile that made criticism feel like encouragement. I started noticing little things about her. How she always arrived early and stayed late. How she remembered details about everyone who worked for her, asking about sick relatives or important presentations. How she would bring coffee for the whole team on Monday mornings, not because she had to, but because she wanted to start the week right. But I also noticed she seemed lonely. Julie would eat lunch at her desk most days, working through what should have been her break. She never talked about weekend plans or dates. When the rest of us would go out for drinks after work, she would politely decline and head home to what I imagined was an empty house. 3 weeks into the job, I was working late on a campaign redesign when I heard her office door close. I looked up to see Julie walking toward the elevator, looking exhausted. It was almost 9 at night, and I realized she had been there since I arrived at 8 that morning. Something made me call out to her. "Hey, Julie, you okay?" She stopped and turned back, and for just a moment, her professional mask slipped. I could see how tired she was, not just from the long day, but from something deeper. "I am fine, Daniel, just a long day." But her voice had this quality I had never heard before. Vulnerable, maybe. Human in a way that her usual confident tone never revealed. I found myself saying, there is this great little diner a few blocks away. They make incredible pie. If you want some company for dinner. I do not know what made me suggest it. This was my boss, after all. But something about that moment felt different. She hesitated, and I could see her weighing the appropriateness of it, the professional boundaries. Then she smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. "You know what, Daniel, that sounds perfect." We spent 2 hours in that diner talking about everything except work. Julie told me about growing up in a small town, about her dreams of starting her own business when everyone told her she was crazy to leave her corporate job. I told her about my family, about my dad, Peter, who worked construction and always wondered why his son wanted to draw pictures for a living. What struck me most was how easy it was to talk to her. Julie listened with this intensity that made you feel like you were the most interesting person in the world. She asked follow-up questions that showed she was really hearing what you said, not just waiting for her turn to speak. When we finally left the diner, she turned to me in the parking lot. Thank you, Daniel. I needed that more than you know. There was something in her voice that made me want to ask what she meant, but I could tell it was not the time. That dinner became a weekly thing. Nothing formal, nothing planned. Just two people who enjoyed each other's company, sharing a meal and conversation. I started looking forward to those evenings more than I wanted to admit. During one of those dinners, about a month after they started, Julie opened up about her divorce. She had been married for 15 years to a man who slowly stopped seeing her as anything more than a business partner in their shared life. He left her for a woman 10 years younger, someone who made him feel alive again, he said. The worst part, she told me, stirring her coffee absently, was not the betrayal. It was realizing I had been invisible for so long that I did not even notice when he stopped looking at me. I felt like I disappeared somewhere along the way, became this successful businesswoman, but stopped being a woman anyone could love. I wanted to tell her how wrong she was, how any man who could not see her was an idiot, but I was her employee, and she was sharing something deeply personal. So I just listened and told her that anyone who made her feel invisible was not worthy of her. She looked up at me then with this expression I could not quite read. Thank you, Daniel. You have a way of making people feel heard. It is a rare gift. Those words stayed with me for days. I found myself thinking about Julie more than I should, noticing things about her that had nothing to do with work. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was concentrating. How her whole face lit up when she laughed at something genuinely funny. The grace with which she moved through the office, commanding respect without ever raising her voice. I was falling for my boss, and I knew it was complicated in about a dozen different ways. The shift happened gradually. Our weekly dinners became twice weekly, then almost daily coffee breaks. Julie started asking my opinion on things beyond work, treating me like a trusted friend rather than just an employee. I could feel something changing between us, but I was not sure if it was real or just wishful thinking on my part. Then came the day that changed everything. I was leaving the office around 6 when I saw Julie in the parking lot, standing next to her car with the hood up. She was on her phone, clearly frustrated. Car trouble, I asked, walking over. She looked up with relief. Oh, Daniel, thank goodness. My car will not start, and the towing company says they cannot get here for 2 hours. I have this dinner tonight, and I am already going to be late. I popped the hood and took a look. It was just a loose battery connection, something I could fix in 5 minutes thanks to all those years helping my dad with his work truck. Where is your dinner? I asked as I tightened the connection. Maybe I can drive you. Julie hesitated. It is actually a date. My friend Cynthia set me up with this guy, Steven. I really do not want to go. But she has been pestering me for months about getting back out there. Something twisted in my stomach at the word date, but I kept my voice casual. Well, let me get this fixed, and you can decide if you want to take your car or let me drive you. The car started right up, and Julie looked relieved. Thank you so much, Daniel. You are a lifesaver. Literally, I should have said goodbye and gone home. Instead, I heard myself asking, what restaurant? Just in case you need a rescue call later. She laughed, but there was something nervous about it. Marcello's on 5th Street, but I am sure it will be fine. Marcello's was this upscale Italian place downtown, the kind of restaurant where you went to impress someone. I knew because I had taken my ex-girlfriend there for our anniversary 2 years ago, back when I thought we had a future together. I went home to my apartment, tried to watch television, tried to read, tried to do anything except think about Julie on a date with some guy named Steven. But I could not stop picturing her sitting across from him, smiling the way she smiled at me during our dinners. Around 8:30, I found myself driving past Marcello's. I told myself I was just in the neighborhood, just making sure she was okay. But when I saw her through the window, looking miserable while her date ignored her for his phone, I knew I had to do something. That was when I walked into the restaurant and found her sitting alone after Stephen had walked out on her. Julie looked up at me with a mixture of surprise, embarrassment, and something that might have been relief. Daniel, what are you doing here? I saw your car in the parking lot and thought I would check if you needed that rescue call. I said, sitting down across from her. How bad was it? She let out a laugh that sounded more like a sigh. He spent 20 minutes telling me about his ex-wife, 15 minutes on a work call, and then left when he realized I was not going to sleep with him tonight. Apparently 46 is too old to play hard to get. The way she said it, with this self-deprecating tone that tried to make a joke out of something that clearly hurt, made my chest tighten. Any guy who walks out on you is an idiot, Julie. She looked at me for a long moment. You do not have to stay, Daniel. I know this is awkward. Your boss getting stood up on a bad date. It is not awkward, I said. And you are not just my boss. You are my friend. Friends do not let friends sit alone in restaurants after jerks walk out on them. That was the night everything changed between us. We stayed at Marcello's for another 2 hours, talking and laughing like the disaster with Stephen had never happened. Julie ordered dessert, something she said she never did on first dates because she did not want to seem indulgent. We shared tiramisu, and she told me stories about other dating disasters Cynthia had orchestrated. When we finally left the restaurant, Julie turned to me in the parking lot. Thank you, Daniel, for rescuing me, for staying, for making me laugh about the whole thing. I do not know what I did to deserve a friend like you. Friend. The word should have stung, but the way she said it with such genuine warmth and gratitude made me feel like maybe being her friend was enough. Maybe it had to be. But as we stood there under the streetlights, something shifted. Julie stepped closer to me, close enough that I could smell her perfume. Something light and floral that I had been noticing for weeks without realizing it. Daniel, she said softly, can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you really come to check on me tonight? And do not say it was because you saw my car. I know you well enough to know when you are not telling the whole truth. My heart started pounding. I could lie, make up some story about being in the neighborhood, or I could tell her the truth and risk everything we had built over the past few months. Because the thought of you sitting across from some guy who did not appreciate you made me crazy, I said. Because you deserve someone who sees how incredible you are, not someone who treats you like you are disposable. Julie stared at me for a moment, and I could see her processing what I had just said. Daniel, she whispered, you know this is complicated. I know, I said. I know you are my boss. I know there is an age difference. I know all the reasons why this is a bad idea. But I also know that I have never met anyone like you. And I cannot pretend I do not feel what I feel. She was quiet for so long that I thought I had ruined everything. Then she reached up and touched my face, her fingers soft against my cheek. I feel it too, she said. I have for weeks. But I am scared, Daniel. I am scared of what people will think, of what it means for your career, of getting hurt again. I covered her hand with mine. We do not have to figure it all out tonight, I said, but we do not have to pretend it is not there either. That was our first real moment of honesty about what was happening between us. We did not kiss that night, did not cross any physical lines, but something fundamental shifted. We both acknowledged that this thing between us was real and worth exploring, even if it was complicated. The next few weeks were a careful dance of maintaining professionalism at work while exploring our connection outside the office. We started spending more time together, going to movies, taking long walks through the city, having dinners that felt more and more like dates, even though we never called them that. Julie was different when it was just the two of us. She was still the confident, successful woman I admired, but she was also softer, more vulnerable. She would tell me about her fears and dreams, about the loneliness she had carried for years, about how she had started to believe she was too old or too set in her ways for love. I told her about my own fears, about feeling like I was not accomplished enough or mature enough for someone like her, about how my last relationship had ended because my ex-girlfriend said I was not ambitious enough, that I was content to drift through life without any real goals. You are not drifting, Julie told me one evening as we walked along the riverfront. You are thoughtful. You take time to figure out what matters to you instead of just chasing whatever everyone else thinks you should want. That is not a flaw. Daniel, that is wisdom. 3 weeks after that night at Marcello's, Julie invited me to her house for dinner. It was the first time I would see where she lived, her private space. I was nervous in a way I had not been since high school, changing my shirt 3 times before settling on something casual but nice. Julie lived in this beautiful craftsman house in an older neighborhood, the kind of place with character and history. She had decorated it with warm colors and interesting art, books everywhere, plants that actually looked healthy. It felt like her, sophisticated but welcoming. She cooked for me this incredible pasta dish with homemade sauce that she said was her grandmother's recipe. We drank wine and talked about everything and nothing, the conversation flowing as easily as it always did between us. After dinner, we sat on her couch with coffee, and I could feel the tension building. Not uncomfortable tension, but the awareness that we were alone in her house, that the careful boundaries we had been maintaining were getting harder to respect. Daniel, Julie said, setting down her coffee cup, I need to tell you something. I waited, my heart racing at the serious tone in her voice. I have not felt this way about someone in years, she said. Maybe ever, if I am being honest. What we have, it is not just attraction or loneliness or some midlife crisis. It is real, and it scares me because I do not want to lose it. You are not going to lose it, I said, reaching for her hand. Julie, I am falling in love with you. I know that might be too much too soon, but it is the truth. She squeezed my hand, her eyes bright with tears. I am falling in love with you too, and that terrifies me because I do not know how to make this work. The age difference, the fact that you work for me, what people will say. We will figure it out, I said. We do not have to have all the answers right now. That was the night we first kissed. It was soft and tentative at first, both of us aware of how much this moment meant. Then Julie melted into me, and I knew that whatever challenges we faced, this was worth fighting for. We spent that night talking until almost dawn, curled up together on her couch. Not sleeping together, not yet, but holding each other and sharing the kind of intimate conversation that happens when two people finally stop pretending they are just friends. Julie told me about her marriage, how it had started with love, but slowly turned into a business partnership, how she had thrown herself into building her company, partly to avoid dealing with how empty her personal life had become, how she had started to believe that success was enough, that wanting love at her age was foolish. I told her about my ex-girlfriend, Michelle, how she had made me feel like my dreams were not big enough, like I was not driven enough, how I had started to believe that maybe I was not the kind of man who could make a woman truly happy. We are both idiots, Julie said, her head on my shoulder. You are the most driven person I know, just not in the way society tells men they should be driven. You care about doing good work, about being kind, about building real connections. Those are not small things, Daniel. And you, I said, stroking her hair, are not too old for love. You are not too successful or too independent or too anything. You are perfect exactly as you are. We made a decision that night to see where this could go. We agreed to be careful at work, to keep our professional and personal lives separate as much as possible. But we also agreed to stop pretending that what we felt was not real or important. The next few months were some of the happiest of my life. Julie and I fell into a rhythm that felt natural and right. We would maintain our professional relationship during work hours, then spend our evenings and weekends together like any other couple. She introduced me to things I had never experienced, art galleries and wine tastings, and theater performances that opened my eyes to new ways of seeing the world. But she also embraced the simpler things I loved. We would spend Saturday mornings at farmers markets, or take long drives in the country, or just stay home and cook together. The physical side of our relationship developed slowly, both of us wanting to be sure this was about more than attraction. When we finally made love, it was everything I had hoped it would be. Tender and passionate and real in a way that made me understand why all my previous relationships had felt incomplete. Julie was different in private than the confident professional everyone else knew. She was playful and affectionate, quick to laugh and slow to judge. She would curl up against me while we watched movies, or dance around her kitchen while cooking dinner, or surprise me with little gifts that showed how well she knew me. But I could also see her wrestling with doubts. She would sometimes get quiet and distant, and I knew she was thinking about all the reasons why we should not be together. The age difference, the workplace complications, what her friends and family would think. The first real test came when her best friend Cynthia found out about us. Cynthia was the one who had set up the disastrous date with Stephen, and she had strong opinions about Julie's love life. I was at Julie's house one Saturday afternoon when Cynthia showed up unexpectedly. Julie introduced me as a friend, but Cynthia was not fooled. She could see the familiarity between us. The way Julie touched my arm when she talked, the way I moved around her kitchen like I belonged there. After I left, Cynthia apparently gave Julie a lecture about how I was too young, how it looked unprofessional, how people would think she was having some kind of midlife crisis. Julie came to work Monday morning distant and stressed, and I could tell the conversation had gotten to her. "We need to talk," she said after everyone else had left the office that evening. My stomach dropped because I knew what was coming. Julie was going to end this before it really began, scared off by her friend's judgment and her own fears about what people would think. "Daniel," she said, sitting across from me in her office, "Cynthia thinks I am making a mistake. She says people will think I am pathetic, an older woman clinging to a younger man because I cannot accept that my time has passed." "What do you think?" I asked. "I think I am scared," she said honestly. "I think I have never been happier than I have been these past few months, and that terrifies me because I do not want to lose it. But I also do not want to hurt your career or make you the subject of office gossip." "Julie," I said, moving my chair closer to hers, "I do not care what anyone thinks. I care about you. I care about what we have together. If you want to end this because you do not feel the same way I do, I will respect that. But if you are ending it because you are scared of what other people think, then you are letting fear make your decisions for you." She was quiet for a long time, staring at her hands. Then she looked up at me with tears in her eyes. "I love you, Daniel," she said. "I love you more than I thought I was capable of loving anyone. But I do not know how to stop being afraid." "Then let me be brave enough for both of us," I said. "Let me show you that this is worth fighting for." That conversation marked a turning point for us. Julie decided to stop hiding our relationship, at least from the people who mattered. She told Cynthia that she was happy, and that was what should matter to a real friend. She had a conversation with Henry Rodriguez, the HR director, about our relationship to make sure we were not violating any company policies. Most importantly, she told her parents, Julie's mother, Barbara, had always been supportive, but her father, Jack, was more traditional. He had never approved of Julie's divorce, thinking she should have tried harder to make her marriage work. The idea of her dating someone 18 years younger was not something he was prepared to embrace. I met them at a family dinner 6 months after Julie and I had gotten together. I was nervous in a way that reminded me of being 16 and picking up my first real girlfriend for prom. These people mattered to Julie, which meant they mattered to me. Barbara was warm from the moment we met, asking about my work and my family with genuine interest. Jack was polite but reserved, clearly trying to figure out what his successful daughter saw in someone my age. The breakthrough came when Jack started talking about his work as a contractor. He had built custom homes for 40 years. And when he mentioned a problem he was having with a client who wanted changes that would compromise the structural integrity of the house, I found myself offering suggestions based on things I had learned from my dad. We ended up talking for an hour about construction and craftsmanship and the satisfaction of building something that would last. By the end of the evening, Jack was treating me like a person rather than just his daughter's questionable boyfriend. "Julie," he said as we were leaving, "you found yourself a good one. He has an old soul." Coming from Jack, that was high praise. Julie cried on the way home, telling me how much it meant to her that her father approved. We also had to navigate the workplace dynamics. Some of our colleagues figured out we were together, but most were professional about it. There was some gossip, some speculation about whether I was getting special treatment, but Julie handled it by being scrupulously fair and making sure our work relationship remained professional. The only real problem came from Michelle King, another graphic designer who had always resented that I got hired over her for a promotion. She started making snide comments about how some people got ahead by sleeping with the boss, implying that my relationship with Julie was purely opportunistic. Julie wanted to address it directly, but I asked her to let me handle it. I had a conversation with Michelle where I made it clear that our personal relationship had started after I was already established in my job, and that any suggestions otherwise were both false and unprofessional. The situation resolved itself when Michelle found another job a few weeks later. But it reminded us both that our relationship would always be subject to scrutiny in ways that other couples did not have to deal with. Despite these challenges, we were happy, really, genuinely happy, in a way that felt sustainable and real. Julie was more relaxed than I had ever seen her, laughing more, worrying less about work. I felt more confident and purposeful, inspired by her example to push myself professionally while still maintaining the values that mattered to me. We started talking about the future in concrete terms, not just hopes and dreams, but actual plans. Julie wanted to expand her business, maybe open a second location. I was interested in eventually starting my own design consultancy. We talked about how we could support each other's goals while building a life together. The moment I knew I wanted to marry Julie came 8 months into our relationship. We were at her house on a Sunday morning, reading the newspaper and drinking coffee in comfortable silence. She was wearing one of my old college sweatshirts and had her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. No makeup, completely relaxed. She looked up from the art section and said, "There is a gallery opening next weekend that looks interesting. Want to check it out?" It was such a simple moment, but something about it hit me with perfect clarity. This was what I wanted for the rest of my life. Sunday mornings with Julie, making plans together, sharing the small everyday moments that make up a real relationship. "I love you," I said, and she smiled that smile that still made my heart race. "I love you too," she said. "What brought that on?" "Just this," I said, gesturing at the scene around us. "You, me, Sunday morning, planning our weekend. I want this forever, Julie." She set down her coffee and looked at me with an expression I could not quite read. "Forever is a long time, Daniel." "Not long enough," I said. That afternoon, I called my dad and told him I was going to ask Julie to marry me. Peter Taylor was a man of few words, but he had met Julie several times by then and approved of her in his quiet way. "She makes you happy, son," he said. "That is what matters. Your mother would have liked her." My mom had died when I was in college, and Peter rarely talked about her. The fact that he thought she would have approved of Julie meant everything to me. I spent 2 weeks planning the proposal. I wanted it to be special, but not overwhelming, romantic, but not cheesy. I knew Julie well enough to know that a public spectacle would mortify her, so I planned something private and personal. I proposed to her in her garden on a warm evening in late spring. She had been working on planting new flowers, something she did every year to mark the changing seasons. I waited until she was finished, then asked her to sit with me on the bench she had placed under her favorite tree. "Julie," I said, taking her hands in mine, "8 months ago, I thought I was just saving you from a bad date. I had no idea I was actually saving myself." She laughed softly, but I could see tears starting in her eyes. "You have made me a better man," I continued. "Not because you tried to change me, but because you saw who I really was and loved me for it. You have shown me what real partnership looks like, what it means to support each other while still being independent people." I pulled out the ring, a simple solitaire that I had chosen because it was elegant without being flashy, classic like Julie herself. "I know we are not conventional," I said. "I know people will always have opinions about our age difference or how we met, but I do not care about any of that because what we have is real and rare and worth everything." Julie was crying now, but she was smiling too. "Will you marry me?" I asked. "Will you build a life with me, whatever that looks like?" "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, of course, yes." We held each other in that garden as the sun set, both of us crying and laughing and trying to process that we were engaged. Julie kept looking at the ring, then at me, like she could not quite believe it was real. "I never thought I would get married again," she said. "I thought that part of my life was over." "It is just beginning," I told her. "We are just beginning." Planning our wedding became an exercise in navigating other people's expectations while staying true to what we wanted. Julie's father had strong opinions about traditional ceremonies. Cynthia thought we should have a big celebration to show everyone how happy we were. My dad just wanted to make sure we were doing what felt right to us. We decided on a small ceremony in Julie's garden, the same place where I had proposed. Just immediate family and a few close friends, nothing elaborate or showy. Julie wore a simple ivory dress that made her look radiant, and I wore the navy suit she had helped me pick out for work presentations. The ceremony itself was perfect. Julie's uncle Peter, who was a retired minister, officiated. We wrote our own vows, promising to support each other's dreams, to communicate honestly even when it was difficult, to choose love over fear every day. When Peter pronounced us husband and wife, and I kissed Julie for the first time as her husband, I felt like the luckiest man in the world. Here was this incredible woman who had chosen to build a life with me, despite all the reasons why it might not work. The reception was a backyard barbecue with Julie's homemade potato salad and my dad's famous ribs. We danced to an old jazz song that Julie loved, swaying together under string lights, while our families mingled and celebrated with us. The best moment came when Jack pulled me aside as the evening was winding down. You know, Daniel, he said, I was not sure about you at first. Thought maybe you were too young to know what you wanted, or that you might break my daughter's heart. And now, I asked, now I see how you look at her, how she lights up when you walk into a room. I see how you take care of each other. Age is just a number when you find the right person. That meant more to Mike than he could know. Having Julie's father's blessing, earning his respect and approval, felt like the final piece of acceptance we needed from our families. Our honeymoon was a week in Tuscany, something Julie had always wanted to do, but never had the chance. We stayed in a small villa outside Florence, spending our days exploring medieval towns and our evenings cooking together with ingredients from local markets. It was there, sitting on a terrace overlooking rolling hills and vineyards, that Julie told me she had never been happier. I spent so many years thinking happiness was something that happened to other people, she said. I thought I was too old, too set in my ways, too damaged from my divorce to find real love again. And now, I asked, refilling her wine glass. Now I know that love does not have an expiration date, she said. That the right person can come into your life at any time if you are brave enough to let them. We talked about our future that night, about the life we wanted to build together. Julie was considering selling her house and buying something new that would be ours rather than hers. I was thinking about proposing a partnership structure at the company that would address any lingering concerns about our relationship affecting the workplace. But mostly we talked about how grateful we were to have found each other, how this unexpected love had transformed both of our lives in ways we were still discovering. 2 years into our marriage, Julie and I have settled into a rhythm that feels both comfortable and exciting. We bought a new house together, something that reflects both of our tastes and needs. Julie has her home office for when she wants to work from home, and I have a studio space for freelance projects. The company has thrived under Julie's continued leadership, and my role has evolved into creative director, a position that recognizes my contributions while maintaining clear professional boundaries. We work well together, but we have also learned to keep our work and personal lives appropriately separate. The age difference that once seemed so significant has become irrelevant in our daily lives. We share the same values, the same sense of humor, the same vision for our future. When people comment on it, which happens less frequently now, we just smile and change the subject. Julie has become more adventurous, more willing to try new things and take risks. Last month, she suggested we take a pottery class together, something she had always wanted to try but never made time for. Watching her discover new passions and interests has been one of the unexpected joys of our marriage. I have become more confident and ambitious, inspired by Julie's example, but in my own way. I started teaching design workshops at the local community college, something that combines my love of creativity with my desire to help others develop their skills. We have talked about having children, a conversation that is complicated by our ages and circumstances. Julie is 48 now, and while it is not impossible, we are realistic about the challenges. We have decided to see what happens naturally and explore other options like adoption if we decide we want to expand our family. But honestly, our life feels complete as it is. We have each other, we have work that fulfills us, we have family and friends who support our relationship. We travel when we can, we have quiet evenings at home, we support each other through challenges and celebrate successes together. The best part is how natural it all feels. When I wake up next to Julie every morning, when we have coffee together before work, when we come home to each other every evening, it does not feel like we are defying conventions or overcoming obstacles. It just feels like love, pure and simple. Julie still gets that look sometimes, the one that says she cannot quite believe this is her life. But it happens less often now, replaced by a contentment that runs deep. She has stopped waiting for something to go wrong and started trusting that what we have is real and lasting. I think about that night at Marcello's sometimes, when I walked into the restaurant and found her sitting alone after that awful date. If I had not followed my instincts that night, if I had just gone home instead of checking on her, we might never have discovered what we could be together. It reminds me that love often comes when you are not looking for it, from the most unexpected places and people. Julie and I were both convinced that our chances for real love had passed us by. We were both focused on our careers, resigned to the idea that companionship and professional success would have to be enough. But sometimes the universe has other plans. Sometimes the person who is meant to change your life is sitting right in front of you, and all you have to do is be brave enough to see them. As I finish telling this story, Julie is in the kitchen making her grandmother's pasta sauce for dinner tonight. We are having her parents over, something that has become a monthly tradition. Jack and I still talk about construction and craftsmanship, but now we also discuss marriage and what it takes to build something that lasts. Barbara has become like a second mother to me, someone who remembers my birthday and asks about my projects and makes me feel like I have always been part of the family. She tells me regularly how happy I make her daughter, how much Julie has changed since we got together. My dad visits us every few months, usually staying for a week and helping with projects around the house. He and Julie have developed their own friendship, bonding over their shared love of gardening and their mutual desire to take care of me. The business continues to grow, and Julie has started talking about succession planning. Not because she wants to retire, but because she wants to make sure the company will continue to thrive regardless of what the future holds. It is the kind of long-term thinking that makes me admire her even more. We have our challenges like any couple. Julie sometimes works too much, and I sometimes need more social time than she does. We have learned to communicate about these differences instead of letting them build into bigger problems. But the foundation of our relationship, the deep friendship and respect that brought us together, remains strong. We still have those long conversations that made me fall in love with her in the first place. We still laugh together every day. We still feel grateful to have found each other. If you are watching this and wondering if it is too late for love, if you are too old or too set in your ways or too damaged from past relationships, I want you to know that you are not. Love does not have an expiration date. The right person can walk into your life at any moment, often when you least expect it. If you are in a situation like mine was, working with someone you are attracted to but think is off limits, remember that connection is rare and precious. Obviously, you need to be professional and respectful, but do not let fear of what other people think stop you from exploring something that could be amazing. Age is just a number when you find someone who sees you for who you really are. Julie and I prove that every day. We are not trying to recapture our youth or deny our ages. We are just two people who found each other and decided to build a life together. To everyone who has supported stories like ours, who believes that love comes in all forms and at all stages of life, thank you. Your acceptance and encouragement mean more than you know. If this story touched you, please like this video and subscribe for more real love stories. Tell us in the comments about your own unexpected love story